Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Laser Sports Academy podcast. We're here with two very special guests today, all the way down from Tasmania. We have the current ZLTAC champions and creators of the fancy new scoreboard that everyone's talking about. We have Runt. How you going, Runt?
Yeah, great, thank you.
And Mr. Twinkles. How are you, bud?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for jumping on tonight. Firstly, congratulations on a very successful year locally for you guys. How are you feeling post all the excitement of nationals?
I think we're more just keen to get to Albury than anything, because just everyone it's a home dance or whatever, and I don't know. I feel like we were less excited about winning probably because it was like a home dance and stuff. So we're mainly just keen to see if we can do it again, I think.
Yeah, you want to kind of prove yourselves on the road. That's totally fair. We'll get into a little bit about what's happening in the local community later. But first, I think everybody wants to chat about this new scoreboard that you guys have created. And what's exciting is that you guys have done a huge amount of work on it since we had the ZLTAC. In fact, Twinkles is going to share a bit more about the rebuild, but essentially it's been rebuilt, completely new code from the ground up. Mr. George, how about you share a little bit about, first just give us a bit of background about how all this came about. How did you guys get started on this project?
Yeah, no worries. So it originally started with the European scoreboard, zone board or the Euro scoreboard. I had some interest in just adding a few different things for us at local site, changing some of the cool things on the front end of it, so like the actual scoreboard part. And then from there, it just kind of streamlined into, wow, we can actually do some pretty cool stuff with this. And speaking with Runt, we came up with a lot of really cool things, but we couldn't quite do those with the version we had. So I reached out to the creator of that, spoke to him, and sort of went on this scoreboard creating path and was able to learn a whole lot about how the laser tag server works and how the data comes out of it, and also ways to create a scoreboard and how it actually accepts the data and stuff. So originally, and the one that we used at Nats and pre-Nats and stuff, was a modified version of ZoneBoard. But this brand new one that we're calling Fireboard is completely new. So I think we got some screenshots here in the first slide. You can check those.
So do you want me? I'll get this. Can you guys see the slideshow already?
We can see it. Okay.
Oh, fantastic! I think I'm still sharing it. Let's just have a look here. Cool. I've just nailed it. There we go.
All right, it's dead now.
Let's bring it back in. All right. So these guys have gone to all the effort of creating a fancy slideshow for us. So there we are. You just tell me when to move to the next slide, mate.
Right.
It's all good. We'll spend a bit of time on this, I reckon.
Yeah. So one of the main things that ZoneBoard did that was really cool was it was able to automatically switch between game modes. If you're playing a solo game mode, it would throw up a solo scoreboard. If you're playing a doubles game mode, it would sort of rejig itself to be doubles and stuff like that. So we've taken that and we've taken it 20 steps further, and we've actually created multiple different scoreboards within the one app. And we have ways of telling whether it be how many teams are in the game, how many players are in the game, what type of game mode you're playing, to essentially apply that to the scoreboard. So as you can see, we have a public one at the top left. So if you're a side op and you don't want to use the one with all the fancy stats and stuff, we have a really simple one that works for your site. We have a solo scoreboard with the actual summary board included at the bottom there. So that's live updating summaries.
But yeah, we have as the extra 5 players join onto the bottom, those summaries are just automatically hidden and it just fills up with players.
Yeah. So this scoreboard's far more reactive to different stuff happening. So even with, like Runt was saying, we can make things appear and disappear at the same time. So if we want to swap from scoreboard to scoreboard, we can do that through whether it be settings or how many teams are in the game and stuff like that. Essentially, we've made it a very one-click solution. You just start it, and there's a few configuration stuff, but once it's good to go, it pretty much just runs autonomously by itself.
Yeah, and for the people listening that aren't watching this, this is going to be a very visual-oriented podcast, so we highly suggest jump onto the YouTube channel and watch it there. But for those who aren't, so that solo scoreboard, I'm noticing there's 4 rows of players. There's five
Yep.
players in each row. Did you say, Runt, that sixth row is also players, and then as soon as the stats start, those bottom five players disappear and the stats pop in?
Yeah, so by default it shows up to 20 players and statistics below it, the summary statistics that are relevant to a solos game. But
Yep.
then as soon as you add that 21st player, it'll bump those statistics out, and it'll just show up to 25 players for a solo game mode.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool. And is there so the board that we saw at Nats, which just had all those special stats on it, can you have that running separately to one of these scoreboards as well? So you could have them running it like in tandem?
Yeah. So the idea with that is you can have them running together, and you previously could have two scoreboards running together. For that to work, you obviously need both of our scoreboards running. But this one will have an integrated one, so we're looking to build that in. So it's a one-click solution. You double click on your scoreboard, and it will all be there. So the summary is already embedded, and you can go to like a /summary link, and the summary will work straight from there.
Cool.
But yeah, at the moment, all sites that already have it, they're like two separate EXEs, but you do run them both simultaneously. So you'd have one screen with all these scoreboards, and then the summary screen running in tandem. Obviously, for a stream or something, you can't run them in tandem as nicely. So for Sweden, which we just had, the Sweenats, which was a really good test and showcase of the scoreboard, Twinkles actually built in a button so we could remotely switch the scoreboard over to the summary board. So after each game, the commentators would go, "Yep, let's have a look at the summary." They'd press it, it'd go like through George's house's server and then off to Sweden, and then tell it to swap to the summary board, and then we'd like grab the cool stats from that, then go back to looking at the Fireboard layout. So yeah, like being connected to the internet, you get all those crazy extra things. But yes, on a site, you'd run them both side by side, the summary board and the Fireboard. They're kind of both in one package.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Cool. So keep talking us or walking us through, George. What else is there on here for us to see?
Right. So the coolest thing our scoreboard has that we've created ourselves is all of the custom events.
I might stop you there, George, because I just want to talk about the design a bit more before we go into that. So I think a lot of people were asking why we made it very specific with the events that you are running, because for each of these scoreboards to know what game mode it is, a lot of the time you need to define it. So if you're going to play a triples game, you need to define it within the game formats as a triples game, and then it'll go to the 8x3 layout. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to try to make everything as perfect as possible, essentially. Like, it may not be perfect, but what the Euroboard was really good at was automatically rescaling. And we had the question, why don't we just automatically rescale? So essentially, however many players there are, it'll just go to however many players there are. Like, so if you get a 16th player in a team's game, it'll show that 16th player in the team. We essentially, though, wanted to make it as perfect as we could, so that took a lot of manual work from us. So with the public board, for example, it goes up to 12 players per team. So we made a separate version with 11 players per team, with 10 players per team, with 7 players per team, etc. And the solos board, a completely separate board, because we wanted to make them all do each event the full justice that we could think of it doing. So like Euroboard, for example, the zone board, when you switch from a team game to a solos game, it'll still like show your denial stat, probably, I think, and it'll show the stuff that isn't really relevant. But when you switch to the solos board on this one, it is its own thing, but it just knows what it is, and it fully switches over. So they are completely separate boards to fully optimize whatever they can do.
And the advantage of that is that like we could finally strip away a lot of the unnecessary information that we've had on the old 5x3 and just include just the stuff that we really want to see, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another huge priority of the scoreboard. Probably the biggest is 5x3. Everything's so, like, it's a great board, and Shex did amazing with it, but like, it's just too much, especially for streaming. In streaming, people are often watching on their phones, and it's often small and off to the left with cameras all on the sides, and you can't actually read a lot of the important stats. Like tag ratio is like too small to read a lot of the time, when that's what a lot of the like competitive players look straight to. And public players like friends and family and stuff, they just get overwhelmed by all the information. So with these boards, it was really important to make the information that they want to see big and think really hard about where their eyes are going to go throughout each time they look at it. So a critique of 5x3 I had was that the team names were like one of the smallest things, and like on a lot of boards, they're like the smallest thing is the team name, and often the team score wasn't that large either. So we really wanted like big team names, so you look at the board and you go, cool, that's who's playing. That's the most important info. And then you want to see the players and their scores, so those are the next biggest and where your eyes jump to. And then it's all your other stats. Like you want to see the player position large, for example, because it's where your mind should be going next. And then yeah, like tag ratio, all that stuff, as big as we could make it, stripped out all the shoulder tags and all that, because nobody really consistently looks at them.
And I've got to commend you on picking a scoreboard for the teams game, which had us in third place. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I thought you might recognize that game, Bootza.
Yeah. The game we want to forget. No. No, it looks so much better to have just the stripped back version. And yeah, like I don't think any of us really care if we don't know how many times we got tagged in the right shoulder anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's just stuff like, instead of it saying denials, it's like it says D+ so that we can make the text bigger, and just like absolutely everything. Like we went through so many builds, so many designs of just like, how can we make this everything as big and as readable, and so your eyes go straight to the information. Like there have been comments like, why don't we align the scores to the left on the like teams board so it like lines up with the alias? And it's like, well, if you do that, it may like look slightly more aesthetic to some people with OCD, but you're having to look away from the center of mass. You really want to just be able to look at a player card and know straight away that's their score. And it's just these tiny things that I spent so long agonizing about. Like, does this make it more or less readable? That is all I care about. I want it to be readable for everyone at every point in time.
I really wish I could see it full screen now, because obviously we're looking at like multiple screens on the one screen here.
Yeah.
I really want to see it full screen so I could have a look at that. Actually, I can zoom in. That gives me a little bit of an indication. Can you see it zoomed in on the stream?
Yeah, looks great.
Oh, there we go. So hang on, let's go a little bit further like that. Boom.
So some of the extra additions we have are that funny little rank there. So you can see like Shock's got an A, Cyrix has an A, Bones has a B. That's like an automatic GRC thing we find to be a bit of fun. Extra little stat just to chuck up on the scoreboard. So all those sorts of things.
And with that, really small, because it should be the last thing you care about. It's just a philosophy just carries through with everything.
Yeah. And I reckon there's like little refinements here, like the for and against. You could just have a plus and a negative sign.
Potentially, but
less
I don't think it saves space to do so, and it makes it more clear for general public. Kind of, I think. But I'm open to feedback like that. Like we've been getting some, and some we've been able to integrate, and it's really good to get that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Looks really good. And we've got you've got the player power there with the little lightning bolt next to it, the lives, and the little blue bar under the photo. What's that all about?
So that is the fire bar. So this is one of the main draws of the board to make it more engaging to everyone, especially though those players that don't know much about the game. Like it's often very hard to tell if someone's doing well. Like you say, they've got a high score, but like when are they doing well? When are they doing something impressive? So when you do impressive things, that bar jumps up, and when it reaches that threshold where that little line is, there's an on fire GIF that plays over the player image. So I don't know if we have an image of that, George. But yes, whenever they maintain that threshold, their player image displays on fire, and you can see when you're doing well and when you're close to on fire based on that bar at the bottom. And though to get on fire, it's things like destroying bases, getting denies, chain tags, which are like rapid tags. The more chain tags you get, like the higher the chain, the more you'll jump on fire. And to maintain on fire, you either have to like kill 2 people every time you reactivate, or keep on getting those chain tags, those denials, or whatever. So whenever someone's on fire for a long time, it's usually quite impressive to maintain it.
Yeah, and so does the bar slowly kind of drop down as you become more kind of like stagnant in the game or whatever, does it? So
Yeah, exactly.
your bar goes up, but it can also then drops down again when you sort of chill.
Yep. So it's just constantly ticking down. So to keep it topped up and on fire, you've got to keep on jumping it back up. If you do get denied though, it just jumps straight back to 0. Just everything.
Awesome. All right, let's have a quick squiz at some of these, a little bit of a zoom in at some of these other boards. This is the doubles board. Got a tag ratio, score ratio, for and against. Nice and simple.
Yep. A really dumb thing, like, we spent way too long on this board. George has spent like over 100 hours coding this. One of the dumb additions, because again, seeking that perfection that we shouldn't even be striving for. But if you're playing a doubles event with more than 3 bases, it'll show more than 3 bases and it'll carousel them. So if you have 8 bases in the game, it'll show all 8 bases on those graphics. Which I kept on being like to George, we don't need this, but it's like, nah, I want to do it. We want to get it as good as we possibly can.
One day we're going to play doubles with 6 bases, and you're going to be ready for it, mate.
That's right. That's exactly right, Bootza. We will be
Awesome.
ready.
Bit of a technical question. Does your tag ratios take out team kills before it makes the calculation?
Yeah, so team kills are completely... So as you see on, like, let's have a look at Moomin. He's got a -1. That -1 is actually stripped from his 4, which Runt knows all about with his 101 tag game.
Yeah.
5x3 will say -2 or -1, but actually keep the same 4 tags.
Yeah.
So technically Moomin would have 55 tags, but one of those is actually a team tag. So we've taken that away and moved it to the right there.
Yep. So
excellent. So it displays it correctly. Like it displays it like the actual 4 tags is actually how many times you tagged enemy players. Doesn't include his team kills.
Yep. The value you see is the value you get.
Correct.
And yeah, same with tag ratio. They're removed, aren't they, George?
Yeah. Yep. So they should be stripped out.
Now, something else to mention is this was a lot of work from Twinkles, but this is the first board that actually knows the difference between stuns and tags. Previously, boards have known if you got shot in the shoulder or shot in the gun, but doesn't know if you're actually dying or getting stunned.
Right.
So Twinkles, it's essentially like a string of if-then statements. Do you want to go into how it knows the difference?
Ooh.
Yeah. So with the stuns, the ozone system or the laser tag system will send like an event through, and the event has like a tag type. So we look for the tag type, and then we also verify that you've lost the stun amount of tag points. Sorry. And then we can essentially like block off bits of code, whether we want to, increase your chain tag or increase your tag streak. For stuns, we don't do that. So we remove them. And then we obviously increase the stun counters, because natively, the laser game system, like the server, doesn't actually tell you how many stuns you have. So you can tell how many tags someone has, but you can't say how many stuns they have. It's not actually a stat made by the PNC data stream, if you will.
Wow. So does that mean that you guys have you guys done any adjustments to the tag ratio calculation to account for stuns?
Tag ratio does not include stuns now. So all the Europeans guys that just played in Sweden, that whenever they would stun someone, it would not contribute to their tag ratio. It would still rack up the tags for and against stat, because we thought it was valuable to still know how many players they're stunning, but the actual deaths contributing to tag ratio does not factor in stuns. If you go to Elim, I think we do actually split it into 2 categories though, right?
In Elim, yeah. So in Elim, they actually are in your tag ratio. So if you could swap to the Elim board.
I'm just doing a very quick math on something, because I just want to
check in the tag ratio.
So for Moomin, for example, you got 54 for, 29 against. If you divide 29 into 54, you get 1.86. But that's because of the stun difference.
That's because of the stuns.
Yeah, so the tag ratio 172% is just his tag ratio for his tags, his kills, DX.
Yep.
But that for and against is including the stuns as well. That's very cool.
Yeah, so I got quite a few comments during Sweden from like 3 people being like, "Oh, tag ratio's off," which is valid, but it's actually correct, I guess, in its current form.
Yeah, it's off by design.
Off by design.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you wanted to get like advanced stats, you could go look at stun tag ratios if you really wanted to, couldn't you?
Yeah, but no, it was like you theoretically could add an extra column like we did on this board, but on the 5x3 it's just not that relevant information when nobody really cares about stuns that much in a teams game, and you could usually work out based on their tag ratio whether they were getting like bulk stuns or bulk tags. Like you could see someone's tags against kept on going up, but they kept on getting like a tag streak increasing, and because they're unaffected by stuns, you could tell that they're getting stunned, but they're never actually dying, which was really impressive. But yes, this board right here, it's elim, so there's only like 4 statistics that anyone actually cares about. So we've got the TR, and then it shows the stuns and tags in elim.
Yeah. So if I can just say something about this one, this is a demo game from I don't even know when. Like it's not our actual game data. So some of the game data in this one is broken, which is why you can see Inferno with the wrong amount of tags, and like his tags are actually off. Reason being is we didn't have 4 colors in Hobart to test with, so I couldn't actually make a test game in Hobart. But every time we played a lim in Hobart, the tags for and against add up to how many lives you have left. So if you look at Inferno, his are off, but that's due to the fact that this is it definitely does work. We just don't have the 4th color.
So just to explain that, so if you go, he's been tagged 3 times, but he's got 5 lives left.
So he's been tagged 11 times. He should have.
Oh yes,
he should have 15 total lives. So he's got 1 extra tag is in the wrong spot. But this is like a demo game from Sweden, somewhere from Finland. I don't even know. It's a 4-team elim game, which I don't have at Hobart. Because we didn't have the colors to test with.
When you actually run your proper scoreboard on a proper game, it'll actually work properly.
Yeah.
And getting those tags against and the lives to match up was what Twinkles spent so long fixing to actually make the scoreboard learn the difference between the two. Because I think when we first took it over from when it was based on the zone board stuff, like we realized that zone board would have a difference between the deaths and the tags against kind of thing. Like it would maybe try to separate stuns and deaths, but it wouldn't do it 100% correctly. So you'd get a differential, and we believe that Twinkles has got rid of that difference.
Crack the code. Patent it, mate. It's new technology. Let's go.
Again, that also relies on the data stream being good. So if there's always going to be issues of if for some reason a packet doesn't come through, which can happen, we can lose stuff like stun events. But the data we don't lose ever is stuff like score data. So if you go to your game where you had a nice
I prefer not to.
Let's have a look at that one. So every data column which has a score in it, which would be like player scores and team scores, those are not manipulated at all. So those are directly taken from the server and directly put into the scoreboard. So at no point do we do any sort of formatting on them or do any sort of validation on them. So whatever the scoreboard's telling us is exactly what's being displayed. Unlike stuns, which is whatever we think the scoreboard's telling us, whatever the scoreboard is actually telling us is those stats, because they are directly from PNC. So they also work with the PNC scoreboard. It's the exact same data stream.
Yep. So where in the past we had issues in Darwin, for example, where the Euroboard was taking too many packets after the game. It ended according to the PNC server, and the 5x3 would take too few packets according to the game server. This just does the exact amount of packets that the official scoreboard uses. I'm not saying this should be the official scoreboard. There's no reason not to be, but yes. I think we should still technically use the PNC one, but this has never shown a different result to that PNC one.
Yeah, so there'll still be that little protocol of quickly go check the official PNC scoreboard, but if we're streaming this, we're pretty much sure that this will be the result at the end.
We'll see how long that lasts, because, again, we've run it for a full year, never had a differential at all. But I do agree, the protocol shouldn't be changed.
Yeah, very cool.
Please don't do that.
All right, and did you want me to continue moving on to the next slide? Is that...
Um,
do you want to? You got more to talk about this slide? Just before we move on, actually, just for those people that might be seeing this for the first time, just tell us a little bit about out of all these cool new stats that you've been getting, like chain tag, etc. Tell us what the most popular ones have been so far.
Usually the toxic ones. DX streak is always a favorite. Like
Yeah.
anytime it's more than 7, you just look at someone and go, "You went through a whole reload and went back for more." Like, so yeah, that's a really fun one. What do you like, Twinkles?
I gotta say DX streak. Every time I make one of those nationals, like national summary boards where I go through the whole nationals, I'm most excited to see. I don't really care who got the most tags, I don't care the most score. It's probably Runt, but DX streak, it can be anyone, and sometimes it's people you don't expect. So that's it. It makes it even better.
Yeah. In those full summary boards, you get to see. It's not as interesting after the game, so we're thinking about removing it and replacing it with most time spent on fire. But the final one, at the end of the competition. So for anyone that doesn't know, Twinkles combines all the summary boards from every game played at a competition and combines them to find who got the peak of everything. Finding who shot the most teammates in their game is always amazing, because it's like, after you shoot 2 teammates, what are you doing? What, honestly? But you see people come out with like 5, 6 tags on their teammates. It's like, at what point do you stop pulling the trigger on every light you see?
That's what we kept asking you the entirety of Nationals Run, but you just didn't listen to us and you just kept shooting people.
Fair enough.
For those of you at home, chain tag is how do you define chain tag again?
That is that's probably the people are really liking dominating now. I don't know. They're all working well, but chain tag, for every tag you get, you have 4 seconds to get another one to keep the chain going. So Chutch, for example, in this game, you usually don't see like insanely high ones in solos, but in this game, so she shot 5 people within 20 seconds, or 16 seconds, I think, because the first one ticks on 0. But yeah, every tag you get 4 seconds to get another one to keep the chain going. So it's very hard to get high chain tags. But Bubbles got like a 12 at nationals, which was insane. Like he's killing people.
Does he know how he got it?
He held green tea and they just kept on running at him.
Oh.
But yeah, no, this is the statistic that I think only like really proficient players like peak out, because you just got to be going insane for this one. And for that reason, it's one of the like biggest contributors to the on fire stat, because the on fire stat should reflect people just going crazy, and the chain tag just directly reflects someone's just going crazy. But yeah, dominating though, we just ran that at US Battle for the Fort or something, and the chat was just going wild. Like, no way, he killed you 8 times in a row without you killing him. Like, that player just got dominated by him. No way. So that's been going very well recently as well.
And how do you define dominating?
So that's how many times in a row do you die to someone without killing them throughout an entire game. So when you kill them, it ends that streak. But yeah, players frequently die to one player 8 times in a row without even realizing it. And it'll be very useful to go back on nationals games and be like, how'd you die to that, like Cornetto, for example, Twinkles 8 times in a row? What was going on there?
Cornetto got me very good. All right, like I'm not embarrassed at all. I'm on it. I got absolutely destroyed by Cornetto in one of our games, and I think she tagged me 8 times in a row without me tagging her. So,
well, this is what these stats are so good for. Hey, I mean, in the very early days, we had here's the winning team and here's the winning player, and like one person gets to celebrate, and as we added tag ratio and all these other things in, there's more people that can like celebrate the little wins in a game that might not be the fact that they win or their team won, but there's all those little victories, and we've just added a little bit more GST on top of that, guys, with all of what you guys have created. Now there's a whole bunch of other things that we can, conversation starters, and just things that make it all more fun, more little awards for people to get at the end of the comp. So yeah,
I definitely think a big philosophy with me when creating, because a lot of these stats have just sort of been like, I guess they start off as little jokes and we're talking about what could we extend the scoreboard to. And then just adding these extra little things, like you said, just gives people those little wins in game. Especially for someone like me being on a team with Runt over here who gets 50 billion points. It's nice for me to do something in game and be like, wow, I actually did something, and I can be proud of my little win. And for everyone else on the team. And a lot of these stats also aren't just attacker centric. They're everyone. So if you go really good on defense and you're anchoring really great and you've killed someone 20 times, you'll get that stat. It's not just for someone out there annihilating everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all dreaming about when we're going to be able to combine all this with the player tracking and what's going to be possible there. That's going to be
coming.
even another level.
It's
coming. Oh, good. All right, we ready for the next screen, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm good to go. You're up, Runt.
Oh, this is all the events. Okay. So this is all the possible. Not even all of them. We have more, I think. Maybe? No, that should be all of them.
That should be all.
Now, following in Shex's meme ways, we chucked some relevant memes in. Whatever we could think of that was amusing to us. So like some of the video game references, like friendly fire would not be tolerated, is like a fun throwback to old COD games, for example. That's when you team deny a player. So it's just a bit of fun with a lot of those ones. You just add some like emblems, a bit of extra pop. The tag streaks one, it's like really fun because like as they tick over to 13, it like shows a little chopper gunner icon, and as they tick over to 25, it's like they get a tactical nuke. So it's like you're just like watching people play, and it's like, can they get the nuke? So it adds a bit of extra fun. But if you're going for like a really serious competition, like Worlds, for example, probably will be. So someone like Moldy, like, and rightly so, is like, look, the memes are great, but like I don't want to have it for like a proper top tier competition. So on the right you have the no fun mode. So whenever you define a game mode, you just tick the button in George's admin board panel, which we'll go into later. And it switches all these events from like having the memes to essentially just here's the details as clearly as we could figure out how to display them. They do have extra stuff like if you tag a base, well, if you tag players while destroying a base, like if in that top right in the no fun mode, for example, it'll show you killed 3 players, and it's got some extra stuff which I think makes it a bit more functional than the fun mode, unfortunately, like 2-shot denied by Runt, for example. So the commentators really quickly know like it was by this player. So it's just additions like that. The 2-shot power denied had to stay as the funny little battery though, because it's necessary and it's rare. So in future versions we'll be able to toggle each one individually. So if you're like, I think friendly fire would not be tolerated, it's a bit too unclear what's happening, but I want to keep like the Chad faces when you deny someone, like you'll be able to do that. But for the current build, not just yet.
Yeah, very cool. Great. And is got more coming, or is it? I guess you've just basically gone, okay, here's all the things that people most excite people in the game. We'll go with these ones. Or you got some more.
We haven't come up with any more recently. And we think the scoreboard's in a pretty good place with the frequency of events. So like chain tags and kill streaks and dominating pop up, but like not an overwhelming amount from what we've seen and the feedback we've heard. It's a good rate, especially when you're commentating, and it's just like one of those lockdown games. Having events like dominating and chain tags and tag streaks just make it so much easier to commentate, because there's always something happening. Like when bases are going down like wild, you're not going to comment on like someone being dominated, but when it's a lockdown game, you're like, oh my god, that guy just got a chain tag, that person's on fire, they've been on fire for like 30 seconds, they're on like a 13 chain tag, like that's insane. And it just gives you something to talk about at every point in the game.
Yeah, and it's going to be so much handier having the person that you were denied by, or the person was denied by, come up on the screen too, because it's always a little bit like trying to look at various spots on the scoreboard at the same time to try and figure out who's denied who. So
and some little extra things that Twinkles again spent like put his effort into coding into that nobody really needs, or like when someone gets denied on the buzzer, that's different to a timeout in the scoreboard, so it'll say denied by game finish as a like that sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
And that specific event holds for 7 seconds instead of the 2 that some of the other events hold for, because it needs to display longer than the game over screen. All these events display for different amounts of time, like the bases and the denials stay for 3 seconds, so you can really process what just happened, whereas the dominating will like flash up and then leave. And there's also order of priority, so if a base gets destroyed, it'll always display over any chain tag or anything less relevant.
Yeah. Very cool. Huge amount of thoughts gone into this, boys. It's so good. All right, shall we move on to this one?
So this is the capabilities of Twinkles getting all the game data. He can just do so much wild stuff with it. So all of these we've seen previously, but they're going to be automated at some point. So it doesn't take any manual effort. And at the end of a round robin day, for example, you can generate an average worm scaled for each team, which we showed on the top 10 podcast. But for anyone that didn't see it, it shows in comparison to the teams around you when your team is doing well and when they're doing poorly. So like if you look at the cyan worm, for example, it goes up really steeply in the first half in comparison to other teams, but then in comparison to teams later in the game, like getting a similar amount of points ticking over throughout the game. And then there's those end of event stats, like the full summary board of everything and the like highest nemesis tags, which is something at the end of a competition where it says, hey, this player just shot you this many times in the competition. Like of everyone in the competition, this person shot you the most.
Yeah, everybody loved that when that went up, that post. That was brilliant. So just on the databasing side of things, can you what's the current you're rolling this scoreboard out into a lot of different places at the moment. Is the data being stored in a database so they can go back and look at it later? Is it getting stored, hosted somewhere in Tassie somewhere or somewhere else where all the data is getting collaborated to potentially create results that stretch across sites? How are you? What's your thoughts there, and where are you currently?
Yeah, so with databasing, the really good thing about this scoreboard is which I think Printouts one at Albury was a good example. When it's running, it dumps every single event from the game directly from the game server. So untouched, unmodified, anything gets completely sent out. And then we can replay that later with changes if we'd like. So that Nemesis stuff happened months after Nationals. It wasn't ready for Nationals. It happened, like at start of October. So we can actually regenerate these games, which is really helpful. With the databasing side, I've started integration into AWS, so like Amazon Web Services, and there'll be a license key system for this scoreboard. So the idea of the license key system isn't to monetize or anything. It's mainly to activate features or deactivate features. So for example, if Lawton was having a competition run, if you guys are doing like your north versus south or whatever, we could actually like enable it for you remotely, and then you could start saving the data for us to our Amazon database or whatever we've got on there. And then after the comp, we can disable that, because we wouldn't want everyone to obviously have access to be able to send us all their infection game modes or whatever they're playing in the public in the public day. But the really good thing about this scoreboard is with those little additives, we can enable or disable those features depending on what we want. So for Nationals, I have 2023 Nationals, and I've got all the data from that. So that will probably be my baseline of this data, but I will cache every year and make sure I have it all. So I'd hope I can run my scoreboard at a Nationals, even if it's not the one displayed on stream, just have it running so we can keep this data and we can eventually go back and create some sort of databasing system. Because as long as we have those game logs, we can do it whenever.
Oh, cool. And how do we have game logs from previous years?
Unfortunately not, because these scoreboards weren't run and 5x3 never dumped any. So this will hopefully become a standard, just to at least have some logs. So then we do have those historically. And
so what about pre-Nats 1? Did we have logs? Did we get go? Oh, that was on Nexus, wasn't it? So is that different story?
No, so at pre-Nats 1 Albury, I wasn't, I think they were still organizing their stream side of it, and I wasn't able to get my scoreboard up and running for them. I think they were using a different one anyways. So I'd hope it printouts too. I think I spoke with some people from the New South Wales committee. We're going to get a summary board set up and all that sort of stuff, so we can do the, like Runt said here, we can do the nemesis tracking and all that extra data. So hopefully it printouts too. We'll start then.
Yeah. It's just like, it feels like if we can get everybody globally just to keep their logs for the time being, like we can figure out the
100%.
rest later. Hey, yeah,
100%.
That's the call, guys. Keep your logs. What I love about that is that, you know, we come up with some crazy awesome stat that, you know, is going to change the face of laser tag, and then we can roll it back through all the old competitions and just see
100%.
how people fared on it. So that's really, really great. And like a log is just a small file. It's very practical to keep a log, isn't it?
Yep. And like you can zip them up, and you know, I'm thinking of having a place where they can just upload them, and then I can, you know, deal with them myself. But yeah, so like for example, US Nats just played. I've got their game logs, so I was going to do some summary stuff for them. Sweden, I'll be getting their game logs as well, so I'll be able to go through it and pretty much start caching all around the world.
It's just a great way to also, like, just from a historical perspective, just to, you know, database our history, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like if we, it's a very practical and easy, cheap way to do it.
Yeah, and storage is so like cheap, and it's practically free. Like like storage is unlimited, and then they're not that big. So I definitely am a big advocate for saving stuff like that, because we've just lost so much data, I guess, that would be really cool, like torn logs and stuff. Like I'm not sure if those are saved somewhere, but they would also be something you could base it off. But yeah, Basedumps does a great job at saving a lot of the data, so I think Basedumps done a really good job of it. As that's got years all the way back to, I think, 2016, 15? I think 16.
Yeah, 2015. Yeah, Helios era. Yep.
So yeah, that's a really cool project that I've always admired. The fact that there is somewhere where there is some data.
Yeah. Oh, and I know for a fact there's data from prior to that somebody has out there, and we won't mention where it might be, but we're just going to pray and hope that it emerges one day from prior to that period, and we can put all this together. All right. Anything more to say on this screen, guys?
Nothing from me, unless you have something to say, Runt. I'm pretty happy with this one. All right. The summary was definitely the catalyst to all this, though. I can't remember how we came about the summary. I know it was me and Runt. We'd thought it up somehow through like a Facebook message, but I think the summary is definitely my favorite viewership thing. Just being able to pop that up and show people. It's the most simple scoreboard to read, and it just highlights some really fun stuff on there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what's this one? Oh, this is your admin panel. Whoops.
Cool. So
just quickly, George, did you want to go through your grand plan for all the databasing online?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so my idea of actual databasing will be to set up some sort of infrastructure where I can essentially make Nats auto upload to my sort of stuff. Again, it's all reliant on me using my scoreboard. Whether it's running on stream, whether it's not, it doesn't make a difference. It just needs to be running. My idea would be to have a very big central database where you can look up all types of things. You can go by year, you can filter by year, team, alias, and have these fun little stats actually included on each person's, I guess, player page. So all that can be dynamic. So I don't have to actually build anything. I build it once, and then as long as the data is all the same, it's fine. Obviously, we can extend it and add extra stats. But my sort of idea was to have little badges on everyone's page. So let's say at Hobart, for example, Runk with the most tags, got 99 tags. And that's also, I think, the most tags in history. Is that correct? Yeah. What we could do is we could have like a little badge on his player page where it could be like, Runt got this stat at Hobart 2023. Runt got this stat at, 2024 Albury. And we can actually have historical data where you can actually see where someone did something. Because Basedump's great for being like, oh, he had a really good score, and it's got the records page. But I was thinking more so of like personal records of players at what comp, when did they achieve it, so you can actually see on a list view of what a player has achieved. What are their placings for X amount of years. So yeah, that's definitely a while away, but I do have all the data, so I am looking to one day build some sort of central repository for everything.
Yeah, the opportunity to filter based upon all different, region and
100%.
competition type, like the level of competition, all that kind of stuff would be incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to that, mate, and wish you the best with finding the time and resources you need to get that done, because everybody would love to see that.
100%.
Okie dokie. Let's move to this one. Admin panel. So. Here we are.
Right.
I've realised
So,
I cannot scroll on here.
Sorry. Anyone?
Every time I try to scroll, it disappears.
It's gone.
Oops. There we go. Okay, I can't touch it, otherwise it disappears.
I can't see it, but
I can't see the admin panel.
I cannot, but I know how it looks. If you need me to just talk about it.
Yeah. Hopefully it's showing it to our viewers. It's up on my screen.
Okay. So the admin panel was one of the.
Do you just want to check that? Sorry,
Can you see it?
Is your screen definitely sharing? No, we can't see it. So we just want to make sure that everyone can see it. Because we could see it earlier, but now we can't.
Can you see that?
No.
Can you see this PowerPoint presentation?
No.
That's a bit funny. So you can see that screen?
I can only see people.
Now let's just make sure that we're still broadcasting this. Oh, I think the share screen dropped out.
Oh. I mean, I can share if that makes it easier. I've got it up.
Right.
But whatever. Yeah, I can see something now.
Is that working now?
Yeah, all right, perfect.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, it's gone again.
So if I touch it, it still disappears if I touch it. Is it back
Right,
there
okay.
again?
Yeah, it's back. All right.
Great.
So anyone who's ever, I don't know but have you actually ever used 5x3, like set it up or anything, like yourself?
Years ago, like not really.
Right.
No, I can't remember anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issue with these scoreboards, it's at no fault at anyone, but the issue is they're just such a pain to set up. Like if you want to add a team, so players to a team, you have to go into like an Excel file and like put their name and then put their team, put their name, put their team. And you got to like, it takes ages. So the idea of this one was to create an admin dashboard where all of that's very simple. It's in little modals and buttons you can click. So on the left there, we have game formats. Game formats are really important because they are what set games. You can set, the pre-start time. If you don't want to have something like lives, because for example, Sweden don't play with lives and shots. So they want to disable that. So you can tick that off and it won't show up on your scoreboard. So that's what the game formats do. And the way they work is, as you can see, there's ZLTAC right there, comp. That will be the name of the game they click on their game center to like load the game. Essentially, whatever that name is, that file will work for it. So in there's a bunch of settings, which is ever growing. Like Runt said, we're going to have the toggles so you can toggle different events on for different games or whatever you want to do. That side of it's really easy, but the team side's the part I was most excited about because I always had to do those for everyone. I had to sit there and like write those big sheets up and they take ages. So this one's a lot easier. Essentially, you can just add a team, you add the name of the team, and then you add the players. And the scoreboard will figure out the photos for the player. It'll figure out the team name. It'll do everything for you.
That's so good. So essentially, admins are celebrating everywhere. Essentially.
Yeah. So George, you've also got the photo admin there. So instead of ever having to drag and drop into local files, it's everything in this board. The plan is to deal with it through this because, I'm not like it. It may. I think it is faster, but even if it's just the same speed, it's about getting people out of local files and like navigating through files because we want non-technical people to be able to use this board. So we want to just be able to give it to a side op and have them read the instructions and have them be able to click on the buttons that make sense to them. So if you want to add a team, you press add team. You don't go into an Excel document and edit teams in there because it's quick. Excel was quick. I liked Excel. But this is just as quick, and it's a lot more clear to those people that might not be as techie. So we've also got instructions on all of this. We've got 8 different instruction documents on each part that's relevant, and like one grand total document that says like everything you should do in order to set everything up and how everything works. But yes, it is different to the old boards, but we think it's a lot better to keep everyone out of those local files and have them just click the buttons that make sense. The biggest issue we've been having with rolling it out to sites is those players that think they know better, that already knew how to use those local files, would be like, I know tech, I got this, and they'd just like they'd go into the image resizing folder, which the board automatically does if you upload them correctly, and they'd mess it all up. So honestly, people that are less techie, if they read the instructions, are often better than those techie people that think they know what they're doing.
Yeah. and it's like it means that also if you're running a comp and you've got like a tech team, for example, you can give like a younger tech person who's kind of you've taken under your wing to do a job like loading the teams in or loading the photos, because it's like it's a very simple set of tasks that they can't really mess up, whereas before it was very easy to kind of break something, which meant that it's something that the media team or the tech team leader has to do because they don't want to outsource it. So it just puts extra pressure on the people running everything. Hey, so
yeah, we've also added some extra stuff like photo admin. So one of the big things with photos is the scoreboard obviously can't know who a player is by its photo, so you have to label it. For example, your photo is bootza.png or whatever. What the scoreboard will do is when you upload a photo, it resizes it by itself to the perfect size we want it to be, to fit for our scoreboard. It also goes through that teams list and it checks if your name's in a team. And if your name is in a team, that will highlight your name in the photo admin as green. And you can like hover over it and see a few things. That allows you to straight away see, okay, who's got a photo but they don't have a team, or vice versa.
Yeah, right. That's great.
So really helps you find those sort of issues, those bugs. Who am I missing? So you can toggle like if you've got players who are missing photos, stuff like that.
Or if you've got players that are misspelled on one of the versions, which
100%.
If they're misspelled on previous boards, you'd only figure it out by them playing the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's to catch those sort of issues before they arise. So you have, you can instantly at a glance see what photos you need, what photos you don't have, or whatever you want.
Yeah. Oh, this is absolutely awesome, guys. I feel like somebody I'm that level of technical where I can kind of bumble my way through, but having like a proper admin back end like this is like far preferable. So something like this would mean that I could actually pull off something for League or something like that if I needed to. I wouldn't have to actually rely on somebody with a lot more technical know-how to actually get it going. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Is there anything more to share on where the admin side of things is going?
So I'm a real big advocate on like a one-click solution. The full release will be, you just double click the exe, you install it, and then it's done. It'll auto update, do everything. We pretty much manage it all from our end. The only thing you'll have to manage is if you want to add some game formats, if you want to add some teams. The other stuff with Amazon is we'll be syncing your game formats. So for example, your site will have a license key that you'll punch in, and if you go to another computer and put in the same license key, all your game formats will download. So they'll already be on that computer as well. So you won't have to administer 5 times on 5 computers. So just creating that sort of stuff is something that I'm really passionate about, like making a proper solution where you do it once and it's done.
Yeah.
So that means we can literally go from nationals to nationals and everything will kind of just automatically pop up.
100% if we wanted.
To be honest, on Ozone, all the competitive game modes should already be correct. It's just because Ozone Ozone on H2 you can't change the game names. When we go to the new system after that, you will be able to. So yes, I think all the default ones should hopefully. If you're running H2, all the game modes will just work. Like all the ZLTAC game modes will just work because they're pre-installed in there, they're predefined, and on H2 you can't rename your games. But yeah, if you're running like a public site and you want to run like 3 pairs game and you want it to show the 3x8, then you need to make a pairs format. So yes, you are right. We'll need to transfer it between places with the admin key.
Yep. Yeah. So just I think localizing stuff's really important. And it's just so much. It's helpful because we can actually help sites for stuff like summaries. We can figure out a way to give people a custom summary board with their logo on it or something, which makes it a whole lot nicer in the foyer having your summary board out there with some branding on it. So that's also something that we really enjoy doing.
Yeah, so the Swedish one earlier had the Boris logo on it. Canberra are currently running a red version of the summary board with their logo. We're about to make an orange version for Adelaide, for example. So a few extra things. But yeah, essentially, the stuff that Twinkles was saying, we're going to be adding like that sort of one-click solution. That's essentially everything that Twinkles could think of as being good for a scoreboard. The scoreboard, as we've unveiled it now, was like everything I could possibly, that like me personally could possibly fathom a scoreboard ever needing to do. So like I still expected us to only ever get to the like using local files and stuff. So the version we've rolled out is pretty much like everything I could think of a scoreboard being, and the version 2 kind of where it's like all an exe with all these admin keys. That's like everything Twinkles can think of.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so the big question is, what do you envision for this? Where do you see this project going for you guys? And I'm going to stop the sharing now because let's start looking at faces again.
Obviously, we want it to be used wherever like people seem to like it, so we really want everyone to have access to it and all the different sites to have access to it. So like, and the public board was mainly made as a way to help it sell it to site operators. So it's like, hey, you don't need to dedicate a screen just to the competitive players. As soon as it toggles back to public, you don't need to swap your 5x3 off. You don't need to do anything. It'll just show like a screen that's nice for the public. It doesn't necessarily have to replace a scoreboard, but it shows a lot of extra things like the on fire, which kids love, all that sort of stuff. So it's just that one board that there's no reason not to have on a screen at a site. Essentially, it's good for competitive, it's good for public, it's good for everyone. I personally think it's like really well optimized for streaming. You can like some stream, like I think US often they put their screen in like a quarter of the screen. It's like it's almost impossible to read on other boards, but we found they put on like the Fireboard, and it's like we could actually read everything even when they chucked it in a tiny corner of the screen. So I personally think it's really good for streaming for both competitive players to just be clear and for family members to be able to understand it a bit better. But yeah, we're not sure if ZLTAC will ever use it because it's technically an unofficial scoreboard and they do have their own, but it seems like a lot of the rest of the world want to use it, so we're really happy to see it used there.
But having said that, you guys have been cleared by PNC Micros. It's all honky-dory what you guys are doing in terms of getting the data and presenting the data. They're all happy with it. So if just brought that up because any potential operators listening in, that's going to be a question that they might have before they put it. But rest assured, this is totally thumbs up from PNC's perspective.
So it is. Sorry to cut you off. It is technically an unofficial scoreboard, like it's third party. But we have been in contact with PNC just to clear that we are creating this. They're aware of its existence. So yeah, we're all good on that front.
And yes, technically, if there were an issue caused by the board, PNC wouldn't assist. But the way that Twinkles put it, which made a lot of sense to me, is the board never actually does anything to the server. All it does is listen for the information. It just listens and then puts it into its own database and displays its own database. It never changes any data coming in. So there should be no theoretical reason it would ever or could ever compromise a site. But we do need to give that disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I love that you guys are making a contribution towards making this simpler for the general public to see. Because as we know, we've all had our parents and stuff jump on, or people that we know jump on to a stream and be a little bit, what the hell's going on with all this? So anything we can do in pursuit of making it simpler for people to understand the game, then is a good move in the right direction. So just before we wrap up, guys, finally, Twinkles, is there anything you wanted to add to what Runt shared before about future direction or vision for the scoreboard?
No, I'm pretty happy. It was mainly what you just said. Like it's all about getting more viewership for people that don't understand the sport, actually widening the viewership for the sport, people that don't know, because it's so hard to read. Like I've got my partner who watches and my dad and stuff, and no one can understand what's going on because it's just all these, numbers and crazy things happening. So yeah, I'm definitely on the side of just simplifying it, making it easy to read and making it fun.
Yep. And I think that's the one of the things that's happened that was maybe not a super surprise, but a bit of a surprise is how much enjoyment all the existing player group got out of seeing all these new stats. Like it's another thing that improves the experience of going to tournaments and getting involved in playing laser sports. So really awesome, guys. Absolutely. Can't take my hat off more to you guys for all the effort, hours, and energy you've put into this project, and sharing it internationally and across Australia and New Zealand so generously, so that we can all share the spoils, and it's enhancing competitions all over the planet. So big hats off to both you guys for this, and we look forward to maybe tuning in again. If there's another evolution or a step forward that you want to share or share with the public, please reach out. And if people are interested in it, how is the best way for them to get in contact with you guys?
So they just add George Dallas on Facebook, right? And he'll send them a link to an official Google Drive version.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yep.
What's your address, George?
Yeah, I can drop that too. Facebook's fine. We'll add you to a group chat and we'll start some communication, help you through it. So we've got all these big group chats happening on me and Runt's Facebook of a million different scoreboards happening where we're like offering support and doing all types of stuff. So
so if you can't find George Dallas on Facebook, just find your nearest laser tag enthusiast. They've probably been in touch with Runt or George already. Somebody will be able to point you in the right direction essentially, and then Twinkles will hook you up.
Yeah, and we do ideally want it to go to Twinkles for now, to get the scoreboard, to make sure that people aren't redistributing old versions or incorrect versions or a version which they could theoretically manipulate. So we want them to get it from George for now. But part of George's grand future is a website you can go to where you can just download the correct version. So that should be coming in the version 2.0, which George has already well underway on. So you can just go to a website which we can post everywhere and download the scoreboard there. Every time it gets an update, it'll be there.
Brilliant. Alrighty, gentlemen. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. I really wish you all the best for the ongoing development. I can't wait to get the scoreboard live at our site here in Launton, and I
think it already is, right, Bootza? You've been missing out.
It is. I just missed out on it last week, but no, we're gonna put a special display in, get some new TVs, and make it a real thing. Awesome. So I think it's another way to get more people asking about leagues and tournaments and extra conversation points for the staff with the customers. So always willing to take that opportunity. So thank you as a player and an operator, guys, for all the work you've done.
Of course.
All right, and best of luck in your lead up to Albury. Just before we go, just a quick how's excited is all your crew to go to Albury next year?
Yeah, they're pretty keen. We're still not sure if we'll get 2 or 3 teams. That's the big question, but no. The players that played last year are all very excited and want to go and do it in another maze, essentially.
For those of you out there who are maybe international teams that didn't get to visit this year, Australia, Tassie have got a really vibrant scene at the moment, and they're really got a whole bunch of players that played their first Nats this year at home and are keen to keep going, and it's really exciting for you guys, just where you guys are positioned after having a successful local Nats and all the energy going into your first, hopefully, competing for finals or competing for a victory at a away Nats next year.
Yeah, woo! Be fun.
Already,
lots of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's 2 in a row, hey?
We'll see.
That's on Run.
That's on Run.
It's all on Run.
No pressure, Run. No pressure.
Yeah, there's no pressure, but it's all on him.
All right, guys. Well, train hard and work hard, and we look forward to seeing you over the coming months and the development of the scoreboard. Thanks for coming on.
Cool. Thank you very much for
Thank
having us,
you.
Bootza. It's been
Appreciate it.
great.